So I know exactly what it's like to leave corporate America and to feel like you are out in these streets trying to represent yourself, to build a business and not feeling like you have the right words, not having the right methods, not having the right pricing, just not having the tools and the skills to sell. I want to take a moment today to talk about the unglamorous truth of what it looks like to build a multi six figure business and to sell what it is that you do for 5 and 6 figures sustainably. It is not magic. It is about having the patience to learn what your value is. It is about finding peace with the discomfort in the process. And it is about releasing your attachment to asking reasonable questions. This is not a science, it's a practice. So let's get into it. So today's episode was inspired by one of my clients in the group coaching program that I lead called Claimed. She herself is a corporate superstar who has ventured out on her own to start her first consulting practice. This is very typical for many of the clients that I work with in a group coaching container who are beginning to represent themselves as independent entrepreneurs for the very first time in their entire careers, having all of the skills, having all of the accolades, lots of titles and fancy logos behind them, but feeling very, very green when it comes to entrepreneurship. And so I encouraged her, as I do with everybody who is a part of my group coaching program, to as they're building, as we're figuring things out, as they're moving forward, to share, to ask their questions that they need support with as they go along. I'm always yelling at them, get what you need. And they're responsive for the most part, right? So anyway, she went ahead and shared the pricing model that she was thinking about moving forward with for her first pitches. And she had 4 questions to go along with that. And I thought that these were perfect because these are the kinds of questions that I think most people are sitting with when they venture out for the first time. And I thought it tied nicely to me even telling a little bit more about my story, because I have not had a year go by in my coaching practice since the day I left my W-2 to today, where I have made less than 6 figures. And most of those years, the vast majority of those years have been multi-6 figure years. And so it's a sustainable way to do this thing. And I believe that it is available to all of us. I always feel like if I can do it, I know you can do it. And so anyway, let's get into some of these questions. Please throw in the comments as you're listening to this. First of all, if you have any additional questions or thoughts or feedback, but also if there are different ways that you have approached this and found success in your entrepreneurial journey as you've made this transition from being a full-time employee to being an independent solopreneur or whatever kind of entrepreneur that you are. Okay. So her first question was simply, how do I think about pricing? How should I price things? And she was thinking a little bit more along the lines of value-based pricing versus hourly rates, right? We see this come up all the time. And my feedback to her first and foremost was like, get away from anything that sounds remotely like hourly based pricing immediately. You don't want, I think this has been prevalent across the internet at this point, you don't want people to start equating the work that you do with just time spent. I can spend 1 hour doing menial work that doesn't require that much effort. I could spend 1 hour crushing things that are really high level and that make a huge strategic impact and difference. It's not the hour spent, it is what impact or value is delivered during that time period. It's just the impact, period. So thinking a lot more along the lines of results. Now, the challenge with this is that when you're first starting, you don't really know what your impact is. You don't know what the results are. I think when we are working in corporate, our job titles, our job specs, the roles and responsibilities that we have, they're a lot more focused on the steps that we're supposed to take, the responsibilities that we have, the set of actions that we're supposed to complete. And so our minds are kind of trained to think in that way. I think a lot about the inputs. And when you think about a corporation, that makes a lot of sense. These big, large companies are hiring for inputs. They're looking for, okay, what skills and talents do you have that I can plug into this existing ecosystem so that you could input it and create value in that direction, right? It's all towards the corporation. There are folks who rise to really high levels in corporations who I think begin to or naturally have the skill set of thinking a lot about how to articulate outputs and think a lot about what it is that they uniquely do. I think that is part of how you succeed professionally anywhere. But I don't think it is not as encouraged and certainly not really supported or trained upon when you're working for somebody else. So it's not your fault that maybe you don't think this way, but this is a big part of the early part of the entrepreneurial journey. And it's honestly a continuous part of it. You're always asking the question, what is the value that we're delivering here? My clients, my customers, my consumers, how are they receiving what it is that I am putting out there? Like, what is the impact that's actually happening for them? And so one of the things I also shared with her is that, I did not know what I was doing until I started doing it. It's hard to price against that thing in the beginning days because you don't know what it is yet. So part of this is like, how can you take your best guess before you begin to get things like client feedback? I did so many testimonial requests. Every time I did even like the tiniest little free coaching, anything, or a presentation or training or any facilitation, anything that I was doing in those early days, I tried as hard as I could to get that feedback because I was like, what did I just do? I'm taking a kind of a shot in the dark with the skills that I have, the perspective that I hold. And I know what I'm attempting to do, what I'm attempting to create in the room, but that doesn't mean that that's what I've actually done. That doesn't mean that's what you've actually received. So I think early on, it's really focusing on, okay, how can I just put myself in as many situations as I possibly can to deliver value, even if that is for free or lower cost just to begin to break in. I don't necessarily believe that we need to be doing free work all over the place. This is a capitalist society. And I think that if you're delivering value, even if you're new at doing a thing, value is value. Okay. So when there are opportunities for you to get paid, ask to be paid. And if somebody doesn't have the budget for it, then you can have that conversation. But why not just start there, start with a budget in mind. But in that interim, getting into things like group coaching programs in mastermind spaces or professional memberships and clubs, like that is clutch. I remember I joined this group. It was led by two women coaches who had been running their coaching businesses since like the late 90s, early 2000s. And so they had at least like a decade to 15 years ahead of me in business. And so I got to be in the room with them. I paid just to join their group. I didn't even really care about the content of all they gave us different books, we did various exercises, and there was like lots of value in the room because it just kind of modeled for me, how a group program can be structured, what kinds of things people do. And, I got good experience. And it also grew me because there was a lot of coaching that I received. But the highest value was for me just to be able to watch, witness, and then get feedback on what these women were charging and how they were thinking about positioning their value and how they interacted when they were working with corporate clients before I ever had my first corporate client. And so my main concern there was just like, okay, how can I begin to form a sort of framing around what this is? Like getting as many early comps within your network as possible. And a lot of the women that I work with are leaving their corporate firms or wherever it is that they're coming from, their institutions, to do something that is maybe not super commonly done or not super commonly done at a high level. And so there might not be an exact comp out there that you can emulate, but there's always something adjacent. You might have to cobble together, somebody who does consulting, but a different type of consulting, but within the same industry, or somebody who does a very similar type of consulting, but in a slightly adjacent industry, but the industries have enough in common where there might be some comps, right? And you just kind of go from there. You just need a starting point. But I think the main thing is to remember that you want to charge against value and to always, I think as a woman, just based on the research that we have about how deeply we undersell ourselves or how deeply we self-discount, that I think you should just lean towards overcharging because that's probably what's going to just even get you within the band of what's reasonable. Okay. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So that was the second question she asked. She's like, well, how do you validate what is reasonable pricing, in the market? How do I validate what this pricing is, according to what's reasonable? And I said, first of all, we throw out the term reasonable, harkening back to what I just said a moment ago, especially as women, as we are launching our businesses and we're putting our services out into the world. Most of us, the vast majority of us, have not been taught or socialized to, and we're not always received because the folks on the receiving end are also not socialized to receive us well, but to be assertive and to really take up as much space as we can and to claim the value that we offer. Like unpaid labor is what we're swimming in as women, and so we think that we need to do twice as much to earn half, and that we need to be worthy of every single dollar. And this like very sort of like there's a moral imperative around who we need to be in order to deserve that dollar, that additional dollar. And so what I told this client is what I will also share with you, which is don't worry about reasonable. All you need to worry about is not being lowballed, not being underpaid, not coming in too low. And sometimes it happens. But this is why I always invested early on, like I said, to be in company, to be in spaces with, to make sure I was having conversations and just asking the question, like, what have you seen? What have you charged? Where have you felt like you've undercharged? Like getting those stories from people who do anything similar, remotely similar to what it is that you are working on building for yourself. That is so important. But again, releasing the notion of what is reasonable, and also understanding that part of where that comes from is just this fear that we're going to be rejected, that something bad will happen if we say the wrong number. 9 times out of 10, all that's going to happen is somebody will say, oh, that's too much. And then you just continue the conversation towards, okay, well, what is your budget? And it's just a negotiation process. And so it's okay to come in way too high and to know that they might say, no, we can't do it, but we could maybe do this, or give me something else to work with. It's just the start of a conversation. So it's totally fine to start the conversation, up here with the champagne and caviars of it all. And just to recognize that maybe you're not there yet in terms of how you're able to articulate your value, so that it makes sense for people to latch on to a price that high and be ready to buy at that level. But what you don't want to do, even early on when you're not able to articulate your value very well quite yet, you don't want to do is start down here. You don't need to discount yourself. Let the negotiations take care of that. Because even if you get down close to where you were going to come in at, that's still a win. Early on, that is still a win, right? And one more note that I want to make on this point is that pricing and what people pay for things and buyer psychology, like all of it is so subjective. The longer that I have been running a business, the longer that I have, or I guess the more confidence I've grown in believing that you can just you can charge anything for anything. You can charge anything for anything. And people will say like, oh, well, the economy is this way, or it might be more challenging for you to position yourself as worth this pricing because of economic conditions. You have to be aware of that, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that it's going to require maybe a different level of work and understanding, or a different level of positioning, or maybe a slightly different target market and audience that you have to go after. But there is no point at which you have to, you have to charge less. You go to the grocery store. You've seen explanations about this before, I'm sure, all over the internet. But it's just like some bottles of water will be 99 cents, and other bottles will be like $8, and it's like $15 bottles of water. You go to Erewhon, I don't know how much the water is there, but I know it's something ridiculous. It's like the cost of a bottle of wine in the US, trying to get some water from one of these fancy grocery stores. It's just about positioning and you getting clear on who it is that you're talking to and where your product or service can fit into their needs, into the psychology of that buyer. And that just takes some time, but it also takes some guts, just to kind of put it out there, because you'd be surprised at how far you can get, or how much further you might be able to take the value of your offer by just kind of having some blind confidence up front. Okay. Now, this is not to say like you won't experience rejection, because that is also still a possibility. I don't want to say like, and everybody will just negotiate with you and it'll be happy, happy times, and, you'll land somewhere. You might find that if over and over again, you just cannot find product market fit, it's because there just isn't a fit with what you're trying to sell and what the market actually wants. And that is also okay, but you have to be unafraid to learn that lesson. It is really okay. And I think the faster you get into it, as opposed to trying to validate everything or finding the most reasonable thing and trying to, try to find a perfect formula, the faster you can just get into how many of these conversations can I begin to have? How can I just start putting myself out in front of people and just get into the rejection of it all, or get into the negotiating down of it all? It will help you pivot and move. Every one of those conversations, every one of those failed pitches or those negotiated down contracts is another data point that gets you to where you want to go. But you have to get started. That's all it is. You just have to get started. You're never going to know what the right price is until you start pricing and selling it. You're never going to know in advance. There's no magic number that somebody's going to give you and say, this, according to my calculations, this is the perfect price. Again, we talk to our network, we talk to our friends, we talk to people that we can meet. who might have some perspective to offer us, just to help us get some level of understanding of like, okay, there are some standards that people, maybe numbers that people are used to hearing within this marketplace or with these types of things. But again, sky's the limit. It depends on where your focus is at and what it is that you're doing, and how you want to handle it, because people sell all kinds of things for all kinds of prices. Okay. The next question she had was actually on pricing feedback. So she shared with us the pricing structure that she was thinking about for the market that she wants to serve. And the only piece of advice that I gave her there was like, only get that kind of feedback from somebody who is actually within the industry, and specifically somebody in the industry who understands your specific buyer psychology. So if you know that you, for instance, are selling into HR managers within real estate tech companies around this size, and they are based in the San Francisco Bay Area, you need to be talking to people who actually know, understand, or have been, or currently are. Like, they need to have proximity to the buyer and to truly understand like what's going on with them on the ground, what the different contingencies are, how they are measuring risk and value and all that kind of stuff, to get direct feedback. If you're like, literally, here are my list of prices, here are the packages, this is what I'm going to deliver on. Does this seem like, can you give me, like, what do you think? Don't ask anybody unless it's that person who fits the criteria I just laid out, that they have to have proximity or they need to be the buyer themselves. That's all that matters. Don't ask around, because it's just an emotional need, and it makes a ton of sense. You just want somebody to tell you that it's okay, that like these might make sense, or that it could be good. But my opinion at that point does not matter, because I don't know. I'm not connected. And also, I will also just say, as somebody who has been both on the enterprise buy side and on the enterprise selling side, like if you're selling into companies, which this client in particular is, that it can, like, every company's culture around investing in different services or consulting services or contractors, whatever, is like so vastly different. It depends on what is hurting the most. It depends on the leadership's just general perspective on hiring outside help, or like, there's so many different contingencies. So even with all of that, we can do, this is why I say it's a practice and not a science. Even with all the research that you do for contracting work and all of that kind of stuff, when you're in a service-based business, which is what I can speak most confidently on, it's so subjective. It's so subjective. And a lot of it really does also have to do with relationships. Like, you can overcome a lot of people's pricing rejection or resistance just because it's like, well, we know and trust you. We've built a relationship here, somebody that I've already known, or you've taken the time to get to know. There's just a lot of ways that this could be done. So I guess I cannot overstate the the subjectiveness. That's a word, subjectiveness of it all. Okay. So again, it's just about getting out there. The last question that she asked was, how do you get over the feelings of imposter syndrome when selling? Which is such a beautiful and honest question to ask, because, girl, I told her, you just do it, which is the truth. And that's part of the unglamorous truth that I need to share today, which is, like, you'll see in everything that I'm sharing here, it's that you just have to have a bias toward action. And I think the beautiful thing about quitting your full-time job and going 100% into selling your own thing, building out your own business, is that, there is a little bit of a financial clock ticking, yes? And so that puts a fire under your behind. At some point, it's like, okay, well, I need to pay these bills. I have to figure this out. And I will also say this, y'all, in the age of AI, and everybody keeps talking about how the labor force is shifting and we have to become more AI fluent. And obviously some jobs are disappearing, but there are going to be new jobs created. Y'all, I truly believe that we're going to go back in time to the days when there was the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. When it used to be that everybody was an entrepreneur. We've turned entrepreneurship into this thing that it's like up on this pedestal that only the few can, you know what I mean? Only the few are worthy. Only the few. And that's not the truth. It's not the truth. We have been forever, for ages. You have a skill, you bring that skill to the marketplace. You bring that skill to the world. You offer it to the community. You sell it in the village. We are moving in a direction where if you do not have the entrepreneurial skills or that muscle built up, if you have not done any reps with this, like if you're just listening right now and you're not looking to leave your full-time job and you're like, no, this is not, I don't even have a side hustle. I implore you, honestly, I implore you to get a side hustle, even if it is just like that little Etsy shop that you have been thinking about doing, but you haven't really created the time to do it, or that little side project event planning thing that you've been wanting to do just on the side, something light. Start doing it, okay? Because the volatility that we are about to experience in the employment markets these coming years, we have no idea exactly what is coming, but we do know that a lot of people are not going to be working the way that they have been, and it is happening super fast. I mean, AI is already getting together in little chat groups, talking to each other in languages that humans can't understand because they done made it up together. They are plotting and doing doing all kinds of things. Okay, the leadership over these AI businesses, these large corporations, these companies that are leveraging this technology, that are building and setting this technology loose upon us, okay? They're uncontrollable. We don't know what they're about to do or how it's all going to play out. So we need to be ready. You need to develop the skills of thinking quick on your feet. You need to develop the skills of being able to handle rejection and move through, managing relationships and digging deep into conversations, building trust with other humans when we need to band together and create opportunities to exchange with each other. Like, we need to all embrace and accept. Do not wait for your company to push you out. Do not wait for your industry to say, we don't have any more of these jobs. Like, I don't want to fear monger, y'all. This is not it. It's just like, this is an opportunity for you to take it seriously, to go ahead and build this capacity. I also just generally think that entrepreneurial skills are beautiful life skills to build. I think I feel so much more connected to myself as someone who works for myself, because soup to nuts, like, I have to imagine a future that I just create out of my head, and then I've got to figure out how to make it happen. I think that is an incredible skill set to have. And I think that you do that, but like inside of a box, because it's inside somebody else's vision or somebody else's dream when you work for another company. And it's always kind of contained. I talk to so many people who are closet creatives, or who actually are publicly, creatives. Being a creative is a part of their job title, even in their company, but they still feel like limited, because it's like, but I can only create within this relegated space, I'm craving like what it would feel like to just, I don't say carte blanche, you know what I mean? But creativity wise. But that's also a muscle that you have to learn how to flex again, because it's tamped down. You have gotten used to having to play by certain rules, price by certain rules, express the value that you create within the confines, within the language of this specific corporate culture, right? We have got to begin to build the skills to articulate what it is that we do, to build the skills of analyzing the data and the feedback that we're getting from customers, from clients, learning to use these different tools technologically to build up businesses, to employ ourselves, So let me get off my future of work soapbox, but I just think that it's so important, and that it's available. It's available. I think it's one of the most like natural ways for us to express our meaning through the work that we do in the world. That's not obviously the highest form of meaning that we have. Our purpose that we have on earth is not simply to work, but to create, to build. I mean, that's a big part of the human experience. And I think learning to do it independently and learning to build that trust with yourself is one of the things that I am so grateful in my entrepreneurial journey. Like, I have never experienced this kind of self-reliance, like my insistence upon every year I have a goal around deepening or heightening my self-integrity, because I know it's so integral to what it is that I want to do in the world through my work and in my family. I think there's a big difference, or I guess there's like a amplified imperative around exercising self-integrity when it is also tied to your economic thriving. When it's like, girl, your bag is tied to this. Okay, like, we're gonna get it together. Yeah. And so, anyway, what was the question I was asking or answering, y'all, about imposter syndrome? I forgot where I took it. Y'all got me talking about AI in the future. But I guess that's all to say. This is about building capacity, and that to trust that when you do the thing the muscle grows. It's like anything else. You've got to exert yourself a little bit. You just have to put yourself out there a little bit. And this is a big part of why I love being in the position that I am in with my group coaching program and with the women that I work with one-on-one as well, but in the group coaching container where I have these extremely accomplished women who are making transitions like this, or who are expanding their professional identities and their personal identities in such a way that doesn't feel compromising, that no longer feels like it is compromising their health, their creativity, their perspective, and holding the belief that they can have it, that they can do it, that they can make the money, and that they don't have to kill themselves doing it. So yeah, we get to hold each other in that space and have, conversations like this where you can get that real-time feedback and to know that you're not alone. To do this unalone is, I think it's the only way to do it. I don't understand people who are out here lone wolfing it. I do not understand that life. I'm like, why? Why? I mean, we're all built different, I guess, but I know I say this all the time, a social animal, honey, okay? And so when I'm with the group and we have that accountability and we're going to be on that call and you already said that you were going to do this thing and somebody's going to be asking you, well, how did it go? You know what I mean? You just have that additional infrastructure in place that can support your launch into whatever the next version of work and life is for you. So I hope that this sort of public coaching share is useful to somebody who is out there thinking about these early steps, because these are the building blocks towards building a multi-six-figure business. At least that's what I know to be true. It boils down to stuff like this. It boils down to answering these kinds of questions and understanding that that you have everything that you need to make it happen. It is a lot more about the internal shifts that need to occur, some embracing of some uncomfy, not so sexy truths, and getting to the doing of it. Y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments below, and I look forward to talking more about topics like this in the future. Let me know if you want to hear more videos about this. I thought I was going to share more about like my specific journey. I feel like I've thrown some bits in there today, but yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know so that I can share more about them in the future. Okay, gotta go. Bye.